We are to look at the eyes which have been pronounced to be the windows to the soul, and see the pupil as the black holes of the galaxy. One can begin to appreciate the innate complexity and intangible that we share with the eternal universe. The pupil becomes a student of the external by taking in information at the event horizon, which is what mystics and sages for millennia have called the eternal now. This is what science has recently called the point of no return. Since the past and future are no longer separated, and all the information from the external event is transmitted to the internal and then interpreted by the seer, at this stage the energetic release that occurs, which physicist Stephen Hawking has called Hawking radiation, which reduces the massive energy of the black hole itself. This naturally must occur because the internal science of paradox has always shown that when something goes in, something else must come back out at the exact same moment. This is the merging and the emerging of what Jean-Paul Sartre called in his epic work, Being and Nothingness. The vortex of the black hole pupil is where matter and antimatter collide, and the observer is inseparable from the observed, which is why this is called. This is because at this crux, time is both eternal and finished at once. As in science, particles and antiparticles are paired, creating the duality paradox of reality, where one pair is pulled into the vortex to be processed in the infinite fractal of the mind, while the other pair is released into the finite realm of form and tangibility. The particles that are released create a glow which scientists now call Hawking radiation. The Gnostic would kindly explain to the scientists that this glow is the color of our eye, otherwise known as the iris. Light is counteractive by darkness, and that which was previously hidden is at once unveiled. This is simply one example why science that exists in solitary confinement without the wisdom of the true gnosis of meditation is the most dangerous and destructive tool. To be fair, not all scientists took immediate agreement with this initial supposition. Without realizing why it actually works, the scientific mind concerned only with the external, how of a thing, while the internal science of mysticism or gnosis looks to the importance of why. Does it look like science is concerned with the question of why, when there is enough nuclear weaponry to destroy the world 1,000 times over? They say simply, how can we make nuclear bombs, and then wash their hands clean over any effects that their experimental combination of matter will in future events. This is not to knock down the totally wondrous art of science itself and all of the wondrous things that can occur because of it, only state that its progeny are often blinded in the acts of specialization and their effects to the infinite links throughout the web of our existence in the thesis of science would integrate with the antithesis of spirituality. There would be a true synthesis, and this harmonization of polarities would definitely be able to create a wondrous existence beyond imagination. If the external continuously refuses to acknowledge the internal, the only possibility is continued downward spiral into the abyss of duality. Why is this important? To look back upon the black hole as connected to our pupil, we see that there is a singularity point that both exists and insists at once. This is also why science has seen black holes as singularities, which the meditator would call the living now. Of course, it is a singularity. It is where the external meets the internal and the two exchange notes, so to speak, which also involves a transaction of energy distribution. The concern here is with a stream of science that is bent upon usurping our free will and awareness and taking the human species to the next level of control that is beyond our personal reckoning or imagination. Whereby humans are fully integrated and merge with technology and actually become cyborgs. That is the promise and goal of the singularitarians. And in case no one else has noticed, the government and the secret societies are all on board and have been putting pieces of this play together for quite some time already. The general idea for the singularity is that machines will reach a point where they become as intelligent as humans, and then from that point on develop their intelligence exponentially, and humans who are then merged with the computer technology will by default also become exponentially more intelligent and will eventually spread out into the cosmos and take over everything. If this sounds exactly like the idea that was presented in Star Trek, with a nefarious force called the Borg taking over everyone and everything in the universe to become a part of the collective, that's because it is. The human body and brain at the moment is likened to a computer. We are individuals, because our processing system is a dual core, just like your computer may have a dual core processor installed on it. This is the reason that we experience everything as a duality of good and evil, because everything is split into two opposites. By usurping the singularity of the pupil black hole that we are currently experiencing and merging it with a technological singularity. This would change the flux density of the experience-receiver relationship, essentially doubling it without the involvement of time. This would create a bridge that one could liken to having two pathways. Truly, it would create a choice, whereby the first way would keep one in what we now know as reality, in our current duality matrix, and the second way would lead to what I would define as quadrility, wherein the individual would be turned into an inquadral, or a being with four perspectives. This goal is alluded to most heavily in the Microsoft operating system Windows logo with its four windows, the four windows or eyes to the soul, instead of the duality of our current two. Manly P. Hall also mentioned this in several of his works, where he stated that the occult of man would be changed, whereby mankind would be endowed with two spines, which would obviously serve the quad-core body computer more effectively in the fourth dimensional matrix. Judges in the court system have been priming the general public in preparation of this eventually for a while now by delivering sentences of 300, 500, or even 1,000 years to a certain criminal. These sentences will at some point actually be servable either within the physical realm or within virtual reality of the mind. That makes the convicted felon feel as if they were incarcerated for those exact lengths of time. The so-called experiential increase in knowledge that is being promised by the technologists is simply going to be necessary byproduct of the need to access more intellectual resources to accomplish the necessary task of the brave world that each individual happens to find themselves in. The insanity has gotten to such a fever pitch that even this itself is denied because apparently the persistent controls is all in your mind too. You didn't witness that control spread out over the last several hours, turning into type of cloud formation that was just a normal and natural cloud that floated in from the east or west or whatever direction you did not happen to be looking towards. This is quite unfortunately how far removed most of humanity is from their own environment. When the population that is concerned with looking down at their phones to receive or send the latest text message pronounces with no satire that if they were being chemically sprayed from the sky like cockroaches, they would know about it. There is no recourse. The irony of their contradictory statements as mixed with their actions is quite sadly completely lost on them.